Alright, welcome back to PrimaFacie. Today we are going to review our reverse autofill feature. So it's part of our new viewer that we released. And to understand how it works and why it works, let's just do a quick review of the autofill philosophy of PrimaFacie. For autofilling forms, we want to autofill just the information that's repeated across multiple forms. Because if you have to fill it out, and you've got to fill it out once, that's okay. If you have to fill it out multiple times, that's not okay. That's where errors and duplication problems come into play. So we have the contact page here. This is the information which we use to autofill forms. And so here we have just the general information, addresses, previous addresses, phones, etc. All of these wonderful things. Now for this contact, Billy Blanks, we have just a first and last name for him because we're going to show you how the reverse autofill feature can actually start to fill in a lot of these items. So let's go to our cases. We already created an I-90 green card renewal case for him. And let's jump straight into the forms. Now the first thing we need to do, for example on this G28, we're going to select who the applicant or immigrant is. We've already done that. And so we can click on this link here to edit the form, which will open up in our new viewer. Now, anything in green, well by default this button you're going to usually see that off, but by default anything in green is going to be autofilled by PrimaFacie. So attorney information, some of your client information on the next page, if you have it in the database of course. And when you have reverse autofill enabled, this shows you the fields that if you fill it out, it'll reverse autofill back into the main database. So for example, if we add a middle name here, let's add the middle name Steve. And you see it flashed purple. So let's go check that out. Let's go back to the contact profile for Billy Blanks. Let's just do a quick refresh and go to edit the general information, and you'll see Steve shows up here as his middle name. So the reverse autofill worked. Let's try a more complicated issue. A little more complicated one will be the address, right? So this is the mailing address of the client. Let's come up with an address here. Let's make it apartment 3B, and we'll put it in Rapids, Michigan. Here we go. And country, USA. Go team. All right, so now we've got all of those things. We saw all those fields flash. So let's go back to the contact page. We're going to refresh the page. And now we're going to go to addresses. And you'll see that we have 123 Appleton Street, apartment 3B, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49548. And it's the mailing address. So this is the part that can be, was a little bit tricky because when we're building these things, these addresses are what we call an item or object. So it's constantly checking to see if there's an item, if it is updated. If it's not there yet, create it. But it allows for a really good reverse autofill experience. So you can see how if you're more comfortable in the forms and you want to just fill in the information that you're going to need, but you still want it in your database for later when you have to do another form, that's fine. So let's add an alien number here. And let's add a phone number here. And another one here. And email here. And all right, we can see all that reverse autofill. Let's go to the next page. No more autofill stuff here. All right, so this form's pretty much done. Let's go back to his contact profile. We are going to click refresh. And you can see this is some of the stuff that we added here. Alien number, an email. We added a phone number, so let's take a look at the phones. And we have a home phone number and a mobile phone number. Those are both things that we added. Now, we can use that information right away in the next form that we're going to create. All we have to do is let's go back to that case on the I-90. And so now we've got more information in the database. So if we go to the I-90 itself, all we have to do is select who the applicant or immigrant is, which is Billy Steve Banks. Click yes because we want to autofill it. It fills it. And here's the interpreter. We'll just list one of our interpreters there already. And now let's click edit. Now, of course, the I-90 has more information requested than the G28, which is fine. But you can see we've got our mailing address in there. We've got our name, a number, but we never provided a physical address. So we could go through here, and it's really just fill in what's missing, right? So let's add 11111 High Avenue. And let's say there's no stuff like that, but there's some information there, and it's USA again. All right, so we can do that. We go to the next page. It's a male. Let's say we have his date of birth, 01012322. Let's see, 1, 2. There we go. Let's do it that way so it looks prettier. Hit reverse fills. City of birth, country of birth, mother's name, father's name, class of admission. Okay, so this is the code that's on the green card. Let's do IR5 maybe. And date of admission. Be that. Social security number. Let's put in all eights. And that's the information that can autofill and it can reverse autofill. And you can see when it flashed that it's working away. And of course it auto saves, which is why we don't have a save button here. Reason for application, it's that, it's this. Let's go to the next page. All right, some biographic information we're going to need to put in here. 3 and 1. All right, and you can see here that these are 3 individual fields because the way that the government created this form is they created 3 fields for us to give 1 number. I don't know what their thinking was on that. Whoever's making these forms has some, I don't know, maybe they got some learning to do. So what it does, it actually makes it a little more complicated for our autofilling in this moment. So one thing what we're doing is we're going through and we are updating these fields so that it'll look the same when it prints out, but we can put it in one field. So right now that's not going to reverse autofill. It's not in purple, it's in green. But these other ones will. So we'll go and click some of those off. Go to the next page and you just go through here and finish in filling any of the blanks that you need. And then that form's done. Then simply click here to download. So let's go back to the contact profile for Billy Steve blanks. Let's refresh. Oop, did I refresh it? No. Here, let's refresh it here. And let's take a look again at addresses. You can see we've got his regular address, his physical address. That is it. There's some other information that we have added to here, like a social security number, that alien number. And again, when you type it in the form, you don't need to add the dashes. We do that in the system. So just type in a regular number there. We got previous addresses, no. We got his phones. Didn't have any of that other stuff there. So that's how it works. So reverse autofill now is actually very powerful. So you can adjust your workflow if you so desire. So you can know that as you're filling out those forms, as you can see, like 99% of that information is getting reverse autofilled. Now let's take one more look at the forms themselves. So let's go back into the case and let's go back to our forms. Let's suppose that we've entered some information on, we updated an address on the G28. And now, because he changed his address, he came into the office and we updated that. Well, what about the other forms? Does it automatically go to the other forms? No, because we want to avoid a runaway train. We want to avoid multiplying errors somewhere or multiplying changes where we don't want the changes to happen. You might have an old case. You might have one of the forms on the cases that you don't want to change the address on because it's already been used for something else and you need to keep that copy there. So you have a button. You can choose to autofill all, and this will re-autofill the forms based on the information in the database. So if we go into the G28 here and we modify, let's see, his address here, and it's actually 3B1, right? We have that. We can go back to our case And we can say now, all right, let's autofill all the forms. Of course, it's only going to fill the forms where you've selected a role for someone. If you have no role selected, it won't fill anything. But this I-90, we have his role filled here. So let's click Autofill All. Yes, we want to change it. And it's working and it's done. Let's go into the I-90 now. There we go. Let's look for mailing address is now apartment 3B1. Okay, now remember, whenever you autofill a form, you're telling the system that you want to pull all the data from the database and put it into the form, which means if you had deleted something or if something was never put there, when you autofill the form again, let's say for in care of, right? If there's nothing in the database for that, it's going to be blank. Now, what the nice thing about the reverse autofill is it used to be you'd have to sort of track like, all right, did I just type it in here or did I type it back in the database? Right now, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're typing stuff into these purple fields, it goes back into the database so you can go and re-autofill a form without losing data because anything it fills with is going to be what has been put in the database. So it's a much safer way to use autofill. All right, and that's how easy it is to use the reverse autofill feature in PrimaFacie.